In Marathi, you can develop performance measures at a few points along your theory of change. For your targets, you can develop goals and associated indicators. For any results, including biophysical results, threat reduction results, and intermediate results, you can develop objectives and associated indicators. You can develop these performance measures either in diagram view, as shown here, or in results chain tracking view, which we'll show you in just a moment. So starting in diagram view, let's zoom out to full screen and then zoom in a little more. We'll start with adding objectives to your theory of change, but know that the same process is used to add goals to your targets. So to add an objective to a result, simply click on the result in the diagram and notice the ghost factor for objectives and indicators at the bottom. You can click on that ghost box and add an objective from this menu, or you can go to the factor properties and on the right-hand menu, notice that there's goal, objective, and indicator icons at the top. To add an objective, simply click on the Add Objective button and note that you can either add a brand new objective, developing all of the content from scratch here. You can copy an existing objective to use that as starter content for your new objective, or you can use the Smart Wizard, which walks you through developing a SMART goal or objective. We have a separate tutorial on using the SMART guide, so we won't cover that here. So to add a new objective, click Add New, develop your basic content for your objective. And in this case, let's develop an objective that says, most tour groups are requesting green tours. You can also capture details, comments, and note what type of evidence is used to develop this objective. We'll save the objective. Now that we have a basic objective, we can also develop indicators for this result. To add an indicator, click on the indicator icon and add an indicator. Again, you can develop a new indicator or copy an existing indicator as a starting point. We'll develop a simple indicator that tracks the number of groups requesting green tours, and we're going to track this as a percent of the total groups requesting tours. Again, you can develop details, you can identify the priority, and you can develop comments and evidence notes. Note that this objective and indicator are both sitting on this parent result. And the default also relates the objective and the indicator to each other if you create them on the same parent result. So for example, if I go to the objective and then I go down to the related indicators, you'll see that the related indicator is here. If you create multiple objectives and indicators on a result, oftentimes you don't want them directly related to one another, so you can always come in and edit those relationships here, deselect your indicator or objective, and save. We do want this objective and indicator related to one another, so we're going to leave that relationship there. Note that coming back to the result on the diagram, you can see the details for the objective and get to the objective specifically here, as well as the indicator. So for this example, we've developed the simple name of the objective, but we have not yet developed the SMART characteristics of this objective. So teams often use the details field to develop the SMART statement that identifies the specific quantitative or qualitative value for the objective and the date by which that objective should be achieved. In this case, we can define the SMART objective as by 2030, 90% of tour groups are requesting green tours. So this objective is now a SMART objective, and we can enter those specific values for that SMART objective in the desired future status section of the associated indicator. So click on the indicator icon and go to the future status section for that indicator. And let's capture the information we just included for our SMART objective. So for example, by 2030, let's say by the end of 2030, we want the value to be 90%. You can capture additional details and comments here as well. So we've now defined the desired future status. That's quite a ways out, 2030. So let's say that we also need an interim milestone to track whether or not we're headed in the right direction. So in this case, let's develop an interim milestone that is at the end of 2025. And let's say we want to be at 75% by the end of 2025 to know we're headed in the right direction. So now we have two future status points, one at 2030 when we want to achieve the objective and one at 2025 to track progress towards the objective. We can also use the measurements field to capture current measurements, but you can also use it to establish the baseline. So let's say that we did a baseline assessment back in 2022, and the value was 30%. So now we have a baseline value from 2022, and let's say we also had some data collected this year, and we are slowly moving in the right direction, and we're now at 40%. This is a slight increase, mild increase, and let's say we did an intensive assessment. We can also enter additional information about the protocol for this indicator if we need to. So we now have two measurements, one from 2022 that's establishing the baseline, one from 2023 that's our current measurement, and we have two desired future status points. If we go to the indicator chart, we'll start to see the data populating that indicator chart as well. So again, note that you can develop the same information for targets, you can develop goals for targets, and you can add indicators. In this case, the add indicator button is not available because this target viability mode is set to KEA mode. So if we want to be able to add indicators directly to a target, we can come in and adjust the target viability mode. There's a separate video on assessing target viability, so we won't cover that here. So all of this work can be developed and managed and reported on directly here in diagram view. But if you prefer to work in a tree view, you can also go to the results chain tracking page or the similar views under the progress tab. So on this results chain tracking page, note that all of the content for this results chain 1 is here. You can see our EcoTour group result. And if you expand that result, you can see that our example objective and our example indicator are here with all of the measurement dates and desired future status date and the associated indicator chart. If you would like to add additional objectives and indicators to any of your results or to your target, you can click on that result or target and then use the three-dot menu in order to add objectives and indicators. Note that in addition to directly relating objectives and indicators, you can also identify which strategies are likely to contribute to that objective or which activities. So for example, if I want to associate an activity with a specific objective or an indicator, I again use the editor tool, and here's an activity related to raising awareness with tourists. So I can identify a relationship between that activity and a specific objective or indicator. In the case of indicators, you may want to relate an indicator to the monitoring activity that you've developed to collect the data for that indicator. In this case, we have not yet defined a monitoring activity for this indicator, but if we had, we would simply select and save, and that monitoring activity is now directly related to the indicator for which it's collecting data.